When you started seeing everything that's come out in the last month, 5 weeks, did it immediately bring back memories for you? And what were those memories?
For me, I think it's been quite close to the surface for a long time. So when I saw the release of Athlete A and then the subsequent coverage with the Gymnasts Alliance and everybody speaking out, I found it to be a really validating experience, because I'd spent the last 15 years thinking it was just me that was suffering, and that it was because there was something inherently wrong with me. I'd seen teammates kind of get on with their lives and not speak about what happened to us, and so I just assumed they were all right, and perhaps I'd imagined it all.
And as a result, have you spoken to those teammates and found out that actually it wasn't just you?
Yeah, it's been an amazing experience to reconnect with teammates and to find out that they've been suffering with it too, and to realise that there were athletes from not only up and down the country but all around the world who were speaking out, and that just shows that it wasn't an isolated experience just in our gym, just with our coach, but it was endemic within gymnastics and elite gymnastics all over the world.
Hearing people speak out, realising that yes, what they're saying is extremely valid, and recognising exactly the same things that I'm hearing now, I was experiencing myself 30 plus years ago.
Can you tell me a little bit about your experiences?
It's hard to think back on it. I think there's been a lot of it that I have had to close down because it is traumatic to relive it.
Talking about adults in a position of power, humiliating you, bullying you, screaming at you. We're talking about gymnasts being sent out of the gym for not trying hard enough or not doing well enough.
I was scared to eat. I was scared of what I ate. I was scared of the coaches seeing what I was eating.
And these issues that you experienced then, did you carry them into adult life?
Many, yes. Still have issues around guilt and eating food. Whilst I try to remain on top of that, I'm still fully aware of where that stems from.
Yeah, I mean, I've been aware for a long time that what I experienced as a teenager has had a big impact on my adult life. I think for me, really, it was the intensity of the negative feedback, and when you're told that you're deficient on a hourly, weekly basis, that has long-term significant mental health effects. I can remember feeling that that person had no right to speak to me that way, but that I was powerless to do anything about it. And because your friends are being bullied and humiliated as well, but nobody is speaking up for you, you're just not in a position to articulate exactly what's happening, the ramifications of it, the consequences of it, how it's making you feel. You just feel ashamed, and that's why none of us told our parents what was happening, because we were made to feel that we deserved to be treated that way, because that's how bullies operate, and that's how the coaches wanted us to feel. That's how they were taught they should coach us, and that's exactly what they did, and nobody stopped them.
And that's what we felt was the norm. That is what we felt gymnastics was. It was just how it was. It was accepted.
It's almost like that gymnastics then and now exists in this bubble where normal life doesn't carry on. It is its own world.
What Tracey and I are hoping to bring here is the sense that we've gone on and we've competed in other sports. So, you know, when you find a way out of gymnastics, when you realise that you don't actually have to put up with the bullying and abuse anymore, and you find a way to exit, you turn your back on it and you run as far away as you can, and you don't look back for some time. For Tracey and I, we both went into athletics, and we were able to use our competitive spirit and desire to achieve and participate in sport, in a sport that is, on the whole, incredibly positive. And we had wonderful experiences there. But for me, the point at which I retired from athletics was the point at which the abuse that I'd suffered in gymnastics finally caught up with me. And I realised that I'd been using athletics as a way to escape from and cover up the disturbing experiences I'd had as a kid.
What did you both think when you realised that what you went through as young girls many decades later was still happening today.
I was shocked by it all. You look at safeguarding within schools, for example. You cannot get a teacher in a classroom around other adults and around 30 children, and they are not allowed to apply sun cream to a child's arm. And then you look in gymnastics, and yet all this is still happening. And you hear story after story after story, and it's all very, very far, far too painfully familiar.
Is that what this legal action is about? Tackling this?
Yes, absolutely. The priority is to cause British Gymnastics to have to stand up and take notice. They have been sweeping things under the carpet. The shutters are down. They don't want to know. From the individual coaches to the gymnastics clubs right through to British Gymnastics. We want to force a change now. We need the sport to be reformed. We need to out the abuse, which has become so ingrained within the sport. And so far they're not taking notice, and that's frustrating us. You know, they have ignored claims from people who have been brave enough to step away from the sport and say what's happening. An Olympian has come forward, put a complaint in, brushed under the carpet. And if they can do that to an Olympian, how can a little club athlete speak up? How can we have a voice unless we come together? And that's what this is all about. It's about having a voice and creating that change that we need so desperately.
We want to see abusive coaching practices stop, and we would like British Gymnastics to get behind us in that. We would like to call for British Gymnastics to get behind us in the culture reforms that we would like to see. We have concerns that the White Review is not going to achieve what we would like.
Are you kind of saying that unless you take on British Gymnastics in the courts, they're not going to change their ways?
It's my understanding that if we look at reviews that have been set up in other sports, those are indicative of an attempt to frustrate the process of athletes' voices from being heard. And we believe that the most effective way to achieve the reforms that we'd like to see now is through a group claim legal action.
People will say when they see this, is this about money? Are you after getting compensation? Is that the main motivation?
Where athletes have suffered from abuse, they deserve to be compensated. But we are running a campaign alongside the group action to achieve reform within the sport. It's reforms that we want to see first and foremost.
And you agree with that, Tracey?
Absolutely, yes. You know, it's still happening. There's children out there today who are oblivious to the way that they're being treated is wrong. Enough is enough. There's no hiding now. It has to be changed, and it has to be now, or we're going to have another complete generation of people coming out of the sport with negatives, with issues going into adulthood. And that doesn't need to be the case. These gymnasts need to be nurtured. And they can be, and the country will still produce top athletes, top gymnasts.
There is a danger that if British Gymnastics doesn't change, suddenly the sport is going to shrink because mothers are going to say, I don't want my daughter, my son getting involved in that.
I mean, you could argue that, but I think the fact that the sport has only grown over the last 30 years shows that the extent to which parents, carers are coerced into believing that this is normal and necessary, that's part of the problem. For me, one of the things I'd like to achieve through this campaign is to show that, you know, many parents, when they do realise it's wrong, they suffer from huge amounts of guilt. But guilt is very unhelpful in the healing process. It stops people from taking actions, and what we need now is for people to take action. We need people to have positive sense of hope and an imagination and the sense of creativity to bring new ideas into the sport.
Let's assume the review does everything that it's supposed to do and it's set up to do. Do you think gymnastics can move forward while Jane Allen is the Chief Executive Officer there?
No. She's been in charge for how many years? Previously, she was in charge at Australian Gymnastics, and there was that fabulous quote that came out recently that, once it's a mistake, twice it's a pattern. She needs to go.
Gymnastics can't move forward while she's there?
No, we need big changes, and now is the time for that to happen.
Everybody watching this will say that both of you sitting here are doing a very brave, courageous thing. addressing in public your experiences and what you want to happen. And there will be those at home who are probably saying to themselves, I've got my own story, I wish I could do that. What would your advice be to them?
We've decided to take this position and to move forwards with a legal action, really to create a platform for other voices to be heard. We're far enough away from the experience now ourselves. It's been 25 years, 30 years, and that's given us the distance so that we are able to speak in this way. My message to anyone at home who has suffered abuse would be, your experience was real, your voice deserves to be heard. Our group action is a way to right the wrongs that have been done, and we invite anybody who has suffered to come forward and join our legal action, because we have more chance of being heard if our voices stand together.
Absolutely, yes. I personally think everyone who has been affected should try and dig deep and have a voice on this one, because it's going to have an impact on hopefully the movement we can create to force the change. And that stems from gymnasts from 30 years ago right to the gymnasts who are in the clubs now. I want the parents of the gymnasts within the clubs now to just start to digest that what's happening with their children isn't right, and we're on board, and we'd like them on board as well to try and create this change.